It's been 3 weeks since we've done one of these. Been at the racetrack. Well, I've been at the racetrack the past couple of weeks, having fun. So glad to get back to these again. But man, oh man, the Xfinity Series always puts on a show no matter where they go. Texas, Dover, Talladega, Martinsville, wherever they go, always a great race. Hope you guys got to see the race. If not, you got to catch the highlights. It was a great one today. We had 3 wide battles for the lead with Carson Quapple, Austin Hill, and who's the third one? Sheldon Creed. Sheldon Creed and Austin Hill, their little rivalry revived on track. We saw Austin Hill going for the lead, going aggressive late, and he spun out. We saw rain. So here's the thing. Here's how I would split this race up. Just a quick little Xfinity race recap in like 2 sentences. Before the rain, normal. After the rain, chaos. And I mean that in like a fun way. You know, we had some wrecks, we had some silliness, but we also had some great racing. We had some crazy strategy that the rain caused. Cole Custer and Justin Allgaier, you know, they were trying to outlast the rain. They thought the race was going to get rained out, and it didn't, and it essentially cost them both the race. I think Custer was able to recover, but Allgaier got in a couple of wrecks, including on the last lap, which we will talk about later in this video. But as for Shane Van Gisbergen, as I said, it's our first race recap for him in 3 weeks. The last 2 weeks at Talladega in Texas. I didn't do a full race recap. We talked about it in our Monday after live stream, but just because, as I said, I've been at the track. So he ends up finishing 18th in this one. He qualified 31st at Dover. I guess I should give you the normal track information for Dover. I usually try to give you guys the track information. I'm going to start expanding it. I'm going to give you state information now. So Dover Speedway, it's a mile-long racetrack, which is equivalent, according to my Google calculator, to 1.6 kilometers. Fun fact about Dover is they are a track that not only has banking in the turns, which basically every single NASCAR track has some little bit of banking at the very least in their turns, but they also have banking on the straightaways. Now, it's not like the turns. The turns are 24 degrees at Dover, but the straightaways are 9 degrees of banking, which is something that is very unique to Dover. Another thing that is unique to Dover, or they are one of the few tracks that have concrete as opposed to asphalt, which makes for just, it's a difference. So Dover, as I said, a super unique track. We've talked about a lot of unique tracks while talking about SVG and what he has to learn in NASCAR. Well, this is another track he's had to learn, and it's not really like any other track he's been to. We've talked about other 1 mile racetracks. We talked about Phoenix earlier in the season. Dover is nothing like Phoenix. Not at all. Not one similarity. Different shape, different banking, different turns. I mean, nothing similar about it. I can't even think of a track. Technically, it's an intermediate, so it's kind of close to the 1.5 miles like Vegas and Texas, which we've already been to, but it's not comparable. It's truly its own monster. Speaking of monster, Miles the Monster is the mascot of this track. Miles the Monster was hungry today. There's this ongoing, it's not even a joke, just this legend that Miles the Monster is the mascot of the track. Yes, there's literally a giant sculpture outside the track the size of the grandstand. It's like 40 feet tall. I don't know how many meters tall that is. I'll Google it for you, though. So he is 46 feet tall, which is equivalent to 14 meters tall. So yes, Miles the Monster, he holds a real-life race car, or at least a scale, like an actual race car. Like Miles the Monster is holding the same size of an actual race car. And he is the mascot, and there's always a joke that he's hungry. You know, we see a lot of big crashes at Dover. We saw a couple today. But basically, that is Miles the Monster being hungry. He eats race cars. When a race car crashes, that's because Miles the Monster was hungry and he wanted to crash a car, and that's how he eats. That's the whole kind of, it's not even a joke. It's just like this running thing in the NASCAR world when we talk about Dover. Dover is the Monster Mile. Miles the Monster is the mascot. Anyways, I've gone off track here. Point being, those are your fun facts about Dover itself. It's banked all the way around. It's got a lot of banking on the straightaways, which is not normal. It's concrete, which is not that normal for NASCAR. And then also it's got itself a fun mascot. Now, as for the state of Delaware, it was the first state Put that on their license plates, I think, but they still claim it. Home of the current U.S. President, Joe Biden, and America's sweetheart, Aubrey Plaza. I mean, she said it in a commercial, so it's factual information. Anyways, Dover, where it is, where the racetrack is, it's the capital of the state. That's about all I got in terms of the actual fun facts. Now let's talk about Shane Van Gisbergen's actual day. I have been yapping about the state of Delaware, about the fun facts about people from Delaware and the racetrack enough. But Shane Van Gisbergen, not the greatest start to the weekend. He was 26th in practice, qualified 31st. As I said, you know, just his first few laps at the track. It's such a short practice session. You know, you really don't get a lot of time to learn the racetrack. But the race, it got better. He was never really up contending for a top 10 or even a top 15, but they made some strategy calls in this thing. So he started 31st. He never fell backwards. Moved up to 28th, 27th, maybe 29th. But the point being, he was somewhere in that range. There were a couple of early cautions, and then a caution at about lap 25 came out. And we saw a couple cars up front pit, but for the most part, everyone stayed out. Well, Shane Van Gisbergen and his team ultimately decided to pit the car. There were only 15 or so laps to go at the stage, so they figured, why not pit now, stay out at the beginning of the next stage, and we'll have really good track position, so that's what they did. They pitted, they came out 5th or 6th out of the cars, about where they came into pit road out of the cars who had pitted, and they restarted 5th at the beginning of stage 2. Now, SVG was on the outside line, did not get the greatest restart, fell back to 9th or 10th or so, and he ran there for about 6 or 7 laps, and then the guys with the fresher tires started to pass him, and he just slowly kept falling back from 10th to 12th, 15th, and he eventually finished stage 2 in 19th place. Now, the end of stage 2, they made sure to pit again. Everyone pitted this time, by the way. Came out of pit road 17th, so good job by the pit crew to gain a couple of spots. Once again, not a great restart. Fell back a few positions into the early 20s, 20, 21, somewhere around there. So he just kind of sat there, but then he said that the car got really loose at the beginning of that run, and he kept on falling back. At one point, he was the last car on the lead lap. He was 26th. But once he kind of got the car back under him, once, you know, everything started to settle down a bit, he was able to make up a few positions, and he got up to 23rd, which is when he was lapped by Cole Custer. And just a few laps after he got lapped by Cole Custer. Now, if you're the first car 1 lap down in NASCAR, you get what is called the free pass. It used to be called the lucky dog, which means, you know, oh, you're the first car a lap down when the caution came out. You get to get back on the lead lap for free. You don't have to stay out and hope that the leaders pit. You know, you just get back on the lead lap. But a few laps after SVG had been lapped by Custer, he had lapped 1 or 2 other cars, and it started raining. It did not start downpouring, but it was enough rain that NASCAR threw the yellow because cars would start crashing if it was raining enough, because these slick tires can't handle the rain on an oval. And anyways, this had pinned SVG a lap down. And as I said, we went on pit road for a red flag for a few minutes. The rain eventually went away, and we got this full race in, which was a miracle because the radar did not look optimistic. But ultimately, the last 35 laps of this race, SVG was pinned a lap down. He couldn't make up positions. Well, technically, he could make up 2 to 3, but if he wasn't in that lucky dog spot, he was just kind of pinned a lap down, stuck in the early 20s. And ultimately, there was enough chaos, there was enough crashes that he was finally able to get the lucky dog. The only problem was the last caution of the day. So he restarted at the tail end of the field. That is the one downside of the lucky dog. There is no downside because if you're the lucky dog, you get your lap back. So, you know, there's no complaining there, but you do have to start at the tail of the field behind all the lap cars. So ultimately, he would have needed another caution to be up there with the guys on the lead lap to try to make passes, but that caution didn't come soon enough. There was a crash on the last lap of the race, but by that point, the white flag had been taken, so he was not able to make up a lot of positions, but the crash was big enough. It did take out a couple of cars, and SVG was able to make it up to 18th. Somehow not ahead of Justin Allgaier, whose back bumper was dangling there at the end. I guess Allgaier had enough speed to make it to the flag under caution. I don't think SVG was involved in it. He was too far back behind these guys that were wrecking. So I think he kept the car clean at the end of the day. I saw the wreck on the replay, but I couldn't see where the 97 was. But ultimately, in conclusion, to wrap up his day, as I said, before the rain, this race was normal. And SVG, they tried to make a strategy call to get him some track position, and they did, running 19th at the end of stage 2 versus running, 26th, 27th where they were in stage 1. That's quite a bit of improvement there. But ultimately in stage 3, when he got pinned a lap down, that just kind of really finished them off in terms of a competitive finish, a good finish. And 18th isn't bad, but looking at this point situation right now, we still got a long way to go before the Xfinity Series playoffs, and SVG could very well go win a road course, and this won't even have to be a topic of conversation. But in terms of pointing his way into the playoffs, it's going to be tough if these 18th place finishes keep happening. Now, once again, it's early in the season. This is his first time to a lot of these racetracks. It's his first time to a lot of these styles of racetracks. So I'm not expecting him to go out there and get top 5s, even top 10s at some of these tracks. But if it does come down to points for the playoffs, they are, mathematically, they're just going to have to make up some spots. They're going to have to do a little bit better. But once again, it's learning. If he misses the Xfinity Series playoffs in the first year, I wouldn't hold it against him just because, he hasn't done much of this oval racing thing. But ultimately, we don't have the points out yet. Let me check, actually. Points aren't out yet, so I'm not quite sure where SVG is. He was 30 points below the playoff cutoff line entering this race, and Ryan Sieg crashed out, so he was right above the cutoff line, so you make up points on him. But as for everyone else, I think Sheldon Creed was near that cutoff line, Brandon Jones, so we'll see. I'll update you at some point, but ultimately that was Dover. Another, neat story today. Anthony Alfredo winning the Dash for Cash. It's back-to-back weeks of a smaller team winning the Dash for Cash, last week with Ryan Sieg, this week with Anthony Alfredo. So really big deal for that team. Really good win, or, Dash for Cash win for that team. $100,000 to Anthony Alfredo and the 5 team. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. We will continue these SVG updates. Remember, no Xfinity race next week at Kansas. It's in 2 weeks at Darlington. But tomorrow we got the Cup Series race. I will be watching that, doing my normal race recap up on here. We'll do our normal Monday post-race stream. So looking forward to seeing you guys for that. Thanks again for watching.